Greetings and salutations, everyone. My name is Ange Kirchhoff, and welcome to my YouTube channel. Today, we're going to be doing a 2019 mock draft for standard one quarterback leagues. A couple weeks back, I conducted a mock draft for Superflex in two quarterback formats. To kind of give you guys an idea on how that would break down early on in the offseason. But after we've passed this insane free agency frenzy, I thought I'd come back and give you guys a little bit of my thoughts on how a normal one quarterback format would break down. So before we begin, hey everybody, how's it going? Haven't been, making videos often. It's been a little while, After that free agent frenzy went down, I made like 5 videos in a row, back-to-back days. It's pretty difficult considering, trying to do a 45+ hour week job and then try to stack YouTube on top of it, I'll get back into the groove. Regular season, was able to do a video almost every single day, so I'll get back into the groove. But as right now, taking it easy, trying to, create some other videos and a draft kit for 2019 season. So, I've been keeping myself busy. I've been on the fantasy grind, to say the least. So anyway, we're going to be doing a mock draft for the 2019 season. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into that, shall we? All right, so here we go. We're here at fantasypros.com. If you guys haven't used this, I'm sure you guys have. I mean, I'm sure you've seen other YouTubers. You've seen me use this in the past. It's probably the best indicator other than a live draft itself. It's really hard to kind of get a bunch of people to do a live draft unless you sign up or pay for some of these websites. Either way, we're just going to do it against the CPU. So let's go ahead and start a mock draft really quickly. All right, so 12 teams, no big deal. We're going to go with half PPR. Only thing I want to add is one flex position here. One quarterback, 2 running back, 3 wide receivers, a tight end, defense, kicker, yeah, blah, blah, blah. We're going to go with half PPR again, just to kind of meet everybody in the middle. If you preferably play standard or full point PPR, just want to meet everybody in the middle. Hit them with the half point PPR. I think it's the most, I think it's the best format as of right now. I'm pretty comfortable with half point PPR. I've been doing a lot of research on half point PPR when I'm conducting my little information here on the side. So either way, let's get into that. Where are we going to draft from? As of right now, I'm thinking I don't want an early pick. I already know, just thinking about a normal one quarterback league, chances are the first 6 picks are going to be Gurley, Saquon, Ezekiel Elliott, McCaffrey, Kamara, and then Hopkins. In no particular order. I think that is probably, maybe even in that specific order, I think that's where it's going to end up, especially now that CJ Anderson really doesn't have a home. I don't know if the Rams are going to sign him. I don't know where he's going to end up, but if he doesn't end up coming back with the Rams and they don't go make a move or draft a running back, Gurley's got that backfield to himself, and hopefully he's healthy. But either way, I'm thinking I want a later pick. I don't want to just randomize it, but I'm thinking 11 or 12. We'll just probably go with 12 for today. I don't know. I feel like having that back end turn, having 2 back-to-back picks, lets you determine and dictate exactly what you want. You can go ahead and make plays on players that you wouldn't have a chance to. But then, having 2 picks, you can establish what you need, pick that up, and then, maybe take some chances here and there. Maybe overdraft a couple players here and there. But you'll kind of get an idea of what I'm talking about. So we'll go with the 12th spot, half point PPR, no big deal, 12 teams. So let's get into that, shall we? Okay, so as I was mentioning, I mean, it's pretty safe to say that as of right now, the top 12, or at least the top 6 picks, are always going to be like that. DeAndre Hopkins is a monster. Last week I was doing a little bit of research on his statistics. The dude played 98% of offensive snaps last year for the Houston Texans. The dude did not come off the field at all. Just that in itself, and the amount of targets he's getting, his efficiency, his catch rate, the guy's been a monster. So he's definitely going to be the first wide receiver taken off the board come the 2019 season, unless something else comes up. But I don't think anything's going to beat, Odell Beckham moving and Antonio Brown moving. But anyway, looking at the breakdown, wide receivers and running backs, that's usually what's going to be the breakdown going into this season. Looking at our available players, we have Le'Veon Bell as the best available running back. Next, Joe Mixon, Nick Chubb. I don't really want Nick Chubb. Dalvin Cook, no big deal. Looking at the wide receivers, Michael Thomas, Odell Beckham, Antonio Brown. So as of right now, I definitely want to establish a good RB1. It's probably going to be Le'Veon Bell. Just thinking about the offenses of these teams, I know Nick Chubb technically is going to be on the best offense comparatively to Le'Veon Bell or Joe Mixon, but I think the chances of him, losing snaps to Duke Johnson and or Kareem Hunt as time progresses, that's definitely a possibility. When it comes to Joe Mixon, on the other hand, I don't know how much you can trust Andy Dalton, Mr. September. The guy is great during the month of September. Throughout his entire career, he has been fantastic. Then after that, he begins to dwindle. His fantasy totals start to plummet, and eventually he gets injured, and AJ Green always gets injured, and then that team blows up. So we'll probably go with Le'Veon Bell as the first pick. I think getting him at the end of the first round is not a bad pick here. So we'll go ahead and set that up. I don't expect to see Le'Veon Bell of 2017. I expect to see him be used a lot, though. They're paying him a lot of money to come in and be that RB1. I know Elijah McGuire is still on the roster. He'll kind of get some work here and there in the passing game, but to be honest, I don't think it's going to be detrimental to Le'Veon Bell's value. And I think going forward into 2019 season, Le'Veon Bell is going to be a safety blanket in the passing game for Sam Darnold. That's exactly what they brought him in for. So hopefully he can go ahead and see more than 100 targets this season. If it's any more than that, my God, he's going to be a top 5 running back, and I can get him at the back end of the first round, which would be insane. So picking Le'Veon Bell number 1. Now, the question is, do I want to take the next available best player according to FantasyPros.com and pick up a Michael Thomas, who him himself, dude, he's ridiculous. I think if I'm not mistaken, 146 targets, 125 receptions. The dude's catch rate is unbelievable. The only issue I had with Michael Thomas is that as the season last year progressed, there were a lot of performances where he was actually quite underwhelming. There were games where, 200 receiving yards, 2 touchdowns, which kind of inflated his stats. And there were games where he was dropping 20 fantasy points here and there. But at the same time, following weeks, he ended up coming out with a 6-point week, an 8-point week, a 9-point week, weeks that a wide receiver 1 shouldn't be, there at. I feel like guys like Julio Jones, who are literally consistently putting up 15-plus points a week throughout the entirety of the 2018 season, especially when he started catching those touchdowns. Yes, a couple off performances here and there is not going to kill you, but as of right now, Michael Thomas, not really a big, I don't know, I'm not feeling it. I'm not feeling the wide receiver position. Odell Beckham, sure, it could be good, but Antonio Brown, these are guys they need to get acclimated with this offense. I don't know what to expect from them. Obviously, I can go ahead and take one of these guys and roll the dice and say, man, it's going to happen. But I'm not sure. Tyreek Hill, not a bad pickup here, considering the amount of targets he's going to get. He's another guy that's very volatile. He'll come up with a 30-point week. He'll turn it around for a 6-point week. But just looking at it for straight consistency, I'm not going to be picking for the next, 4 picks. So the chances are I've got to be able to make a pick here that I'm going to be satisfied with no matter who comes off the board. So looking at the available players, I really like Dalvin Cook this season, considering the fact that Latavius Murray is no longer with the Vikings. He's moved on to the New Orleans Saints. Nick Chubb, Joe Mixon, I wouldn't mind having Joe Mixon at this point. Having 2 great running backs, I think it's probably the way to go. Travis Kelce's still on the board. I'm high on tight ends this year. There's a lot of guys that are coming back from injury that I potentially can see having some great years. So as of right now, I honestly would break it down to either Odell Beckham or Joe Mixon. And personally, I'm feeling that. I'm going to go with Joe Mixon right now. The running back position is extremely important, and I'm just going to hope that he ends up getting as many carries as he keeps talking about. The guy in the offseason has been saying, I'm going to touch the ball 325 plus times, no big deal. Goodness, if you're capable of doing that, that's fantastic. We saw him perform even without Andy Dalton and AJ Green on the field at the end of last season. Joe Mixon, especially when the other teams were filling the box, the dude was still able to produce in various opportunities. So I'm just hoping that once that offense gets put together, coaching staff is different. They can bring in some help for him and, shore up that offensive alignment. They can potentially get something going there. All right, so now that I've done that, What has gone off the board? Obviously, you know, couple of the good tight ends, Patrick Mahomes in the 3rd round. Goodness gracious, it seems a little early, but then again, the dude was fantastic in 6-point per passing touchdown leagues. I think if I'm not mistaken, he had 100 more points than the next best quarterback, which was Matt Ryan. I mean, it was insane last season. I don't, predict that he's going to have a similar 50 touchdown kind of year, maybe a little bit of regression, but even then, a 25% regression would still make him a ridiculously good quarterback in 2019. Other than that, looking around, a couple running backs, wide receivers, no big deal. All right, so let's look at the available positions. I don't really need to address the running back position. I'm pretty much looking for a wide receiver at this point. And looking at our available options, let's go ahead and open this up a little bit more. The tight end position, I'm looking at it right now. OJ Howard, man, he's great. Prior to his season-ending injury at around week 12 or 11, if I'm not mistaken, the dude was averaging 10 points a week. Whether it was Jameis Winston or Ryan Fitzpatrick, under center. So OJ Howard was definitely a part of that offense, even though his target share wasn't a lot. And yes, I've been doing a lot of statistics, so I kind of have this off the top of my head. He was still getting a lot of red zone work, which was majority of his points coming off of touchdowns and a couple big plays here and there. And the fact that OJ Howard is such a good blocking tight end, even if Cameron Brate's on the roster, OJ Howard's going to be on the field majority of the time. He's going to have majority of the snaps and the opportunities between the two of them. But, as of right now, we're not going to look for an OJ Howard or a tight end. We're going to look at the wide receivers. Stephon Diggs and Robert Woods are probably the best two, in my opinion. Stephon Diggs, pretty consistent last year, even though, Kirk Cousins had his woes here and there. There's been new rumors going around that Stephon Diggs wants to be traded to the Washington Redskins. But no, there's no way. I know I saw some things on Twitter the other day. I doubt that's going to be the case. So I'm probably going to go with Stephon Diggs and Robert Woods here. Obviously, I could shore up my flex position running back and go with a Marlon Mack, who, goodness, is going to be great this season. Marlon Mack last year. I know I'm kind of just going off on tangents here, but speaking of Marlon Mack, when the dude had, if I'm not mistaken, 17 plus carries last season, he was guaranteed 15 plus fantasy points a game in half-point PPR scoring formats. He was absolutely ridiculous. First round of the playoffs against the Texans, who was a great run defense even late in the season. The guy was a complete monster, ripping off for 100 plus yards and a rushing touchdown. But anyway, I think I'm going to have to commit to the wide receiver position. We'll go with Stephon Diggs as right now. The guy is fantastic. Even when Adam Thielen started to kind of break down later on in the season after having those 8 100 receiving yard consecutive games, Stephon Diggs stepped up, figured it out, and it was great. Goodness, I'm a Cooper Kupp guy, but I'm looking at this. Goodness, if I take Robert Woods, chances are Cooper Kupp's off my board. So that is what it is. We're gonna probably go with Robert Woods as of right now. It's not a bad play right here. I think as the number 1 wide receiver for the LA Rams, it pretty much sets him up for success. I know Brandon Cooks, for some reason, is being considered the better receiver. I personally just don't think that's the case. I think Robert Woods is going to see more targets, get more receiving yards, see more red zone work than Brandon Cooks this season, like he did last year. So we're going to go and we're going to take our second wide receiver here. Sure up that. Okay, so Cooper Kupp off the board. Oh goodness, that was a wide receiver run if I've ever seen any. Couple quarterbacks going off the board at the end of the 5th round. Specifically the top 3 quarterbacks of the draft. Patrick Mahomes, Aaron Rodgers, Andrew Luck. That's going to be a consistent, no matter what the order is going to be. I think Patrick Mahomes is number 1. But I think, Andrew Luck, considering the weapons that they're surrounding him with, his personal health and the offensive line, goodness, he could potentially be the number 2. I'm kind of seeing him there as of right now, especially considering the Green Bay Packers and Aaron Rodgers. They haven't really done anything to surround him with any more talent than they already have. He has a good offensive line when it comes to pass blocking. Other than Devontae Adams, you still have some inexperienced wide receivers there. I know he's a great quarterback, but I would probably lean towards Andrew Luck in this fact, especially now that the Green Bay Packers head coach is the former offensive coordinator of the Titans. They're gonna run the ball a little bit more. So Aaron Jones is gonna be sponging away a little bit of fantasy value from Aaron Rodgers here and there. But let's see here. Going into this round, I got to open this running back tab up a little bit more. Tariq Cohen, Mark Ingram. Those are 2 great running backs. These are going to be potentially high-end RB2s low-end RB1s come this season. You can grab them in the 5th round. Tariq Cohen is going to be the main back. If I'm not mistaken, I mean, they were looking to shop Jordan Howard, the Chicago Bears earlier this offseason. So the fact of the matter is they don't want to continue to pay his contract. They want to go ahead and move him, try to get a draft pick for him. So I'm sure that they're going to be able to get that done, whether they give him away for a 6th-round pick, 5th-round pick. Jordan Howard's going to be moved, and Tariq Cohen is going to be a huge part of this offense. He already was last season, was one of the top receivers on the team. And especially considering we're playing half-point PPR, the guy's a monster, can still produce out of the backfield on the ground. Mark Ingram, on the other hand, joining one of the best running teams in the NFL, if not one, the best running team in the NFL, leading the league with yards, rushing attempts, rushing touchdowns. I mean, goodness gracious, they were in the top 5 of all those statistics, and number 1 in a couple of them, like I talked about a couple weeks back. So between those two, I preferably will take Tariq Cohen, but as of right now, looking at our other options, goodness gracious, I got to scroll for 10 miles. Jarvis Landry, Calvin Ridley, DJ Moore. I'm not really too high on these guys. I'd probably rather go for like a Will Fuller as my wide receiver 3, a guy that's been incredible. With Deshaun Watson on the field, both of them as a combined duo, I think they had 11 receiving touchdowns in 13 games. Yeah, that duo is pretty ridiculous. So as of right now, I'm going to go with Tariq Cohen. I know this system doesn't really like it as a pick, but I think it's a fantastic pick. I could technically go with Deshaun Watson right now, a guy that had over 30 touchdowns last year through the air and on the ground, 500 rushing yards. I mean, just absolutely fantastic. They brought in a new left tackle, Matt Khalil, to go ahead and ensure that he's protected. I'm sure the 1st-round pick of the Texans is most likely going to be an offensive lineman. I think, drafting around the 20s, you can pretty much sure up a good offensive lineman, which they need. An offensive tackle here and there wouldn't be a problem for them. So, yes, that's great. But I think I can get a lot more value later on in the draft if perhaps Matt Ryan, Cam Newton, Baker Mayfield sit around. Those could be great picks as well. So we're going to go ahead and pass on quarterback right now. I don't need another running back considering I've already filled in my flex. So it's either a wide receiver or a tight end. And if I look at the tight end position right now, O.J. Howard is great, but I think a guy like Jarvis Landry is only going to improve with the fact that this Browns offense is going to be ridiculous. They have so much firepower. The defenses need to respect, Nick Chubb in the running game, David Njoku his size, and then you have to figure out, okay, we got to stop Odell Beckham and Jarvis Landry at the same time. So as of right now, what would round are we in? I think we're in the 6th. Yeah, we're in the 6th, beginning of the 6th round. I think Jarvis Landry is a great pick as my wide receiver 3. And I feel like, yes, O.J. Howard could be a great tight end pick, but if I can come back around and a guy like Evan Ingram is still on the board, that'll be fantastic. Especially, I mean, I'm really high on Evan Ingram this season considering Odell Beckham's departure from the New York Giants. So we're going to go with Jarvis Landry here, pick him up as my wide receiver 3. Let's see how this ends up, shall we? A couple quarterbacks taken off the board, no big deal. Matt Ryan is still there, and that's probably where I'm going to go with this quarterback pick. Now, I don't have to pick it right now. I got to look at what other options are available. Let's see what's been taken off of the board. Calvin Ridley, Baker Mayfield, Eric Ebron, Hunter Henry, Evan Ingram. Goodness gracious, the tight end run just happened in front of me. So I have to adjust on the dime. No big deal. Let's go ahead and scroll down. Let's look at exactly what tight ends are available. Delaney Walker, Jack Doyle, Trey Burton, Austin Hooper. Austin Hooper is not a bad tight end, guys. If I'm not mistaken, Austin Hooper was the number 7 tight end last year with only a handful of touchdowns, 600 plus, I think it was about 650 receiving yards, had about 88 targets. He was a pretty vital part of that offense considering how much they threw the ball. I think obviously with the return of Devontae Freeman, they're more likely going to run the ball more, but I still don't think that that Austin Hooper's targets are going to decrease. I think now that he's shown that he's a capable target for this team, he's not a bad tight end. I think he averages probably just around like in a half-point PPR, probably like 8, not even 8 points, 7, 8 points. So we'll probably wait on that. Definitely going to pick up Matt Ryan. That's a given. I don't want Jared Goff. As much as I love the Rams, he scares the crap out of me. He really does. And because of the fact that Todd Gurley is associated with that offense, there can be games where Jared Goff just does not perform. Now, it's not because he plays bad, but it's because they get down to the goal line and all they do is hand the ball off to Todd Gurley. He runs it up the middle, and there goes Jared Goff's points. On the other hand, we have Matt Ryan in a division, the NFC South, which is an absolute it's a high-powered offense division. They have shootouts left, right, and center. I was doing some stats last week, and I found that Matt Ryan against the NFC South averaged 35 fantasy points per game in 6-point per passing touchdown leagues. I mean, the fact that I'm pulling all these stats off my head kind of gives you an idea of how much work I've been doing. I literally have a plethora of stats just sitting in my head. I've taken many ibuprofens and Advils in order to contain this knowledge. No big deal. I figured it out. But either way, I mean, just the 6 games he's going to play within his division, he's fantastic. So, and I think, obviously, with the offense being so powerful, this team only needs a good defense to compete. So they're going to improve on that in the draft, picking up players here and there. But Matt Ryan's going to pick right here, pick him up. Do I want to go in for a tight end here? Or do I want to go ahead and shore up a bench slot, perhaps another running back that I can, flex around here and there? I think getting running back depth is really good, and especially looking at the wide receivers, I really could go for a Will Fuller, but as of right now, I'm going to go ahead. Let me really quickly, man, look at the tight ends really quickly. I just want to talk about Rob Gronkowski. Dude was a fantastic tight end. I think, at the beginning of last season, if many of you don't know, the New England Patriots wanted to trade Rob Gronkowski to the Detroit Lions. Now, reason why is because former defensive coordinator of the New England Patriots, he moved on and he is the head coach of the Lions, Matt Patricia. He wanted to go ahead and kind of create a similar scheme in Detroit. So he thought, okay, maybe I can go give Bill Belichick a pick here and there. He'll give me back Gronk. Gronk got a whiff of this. Gronk threatened to retire. He said, if you trade me, I will retire and I will make sure that team, is toast because of you guys. So they decided to keep him. And now that, he's gotten to, I think it's his 3rd Super Bowl ring, he's decided to retire. Congratulations on him. That's fantastic. But looking at the tight end group, man, I mean, it continues to get thinner. It really does. Hopefully we can get some guys to step up this year, but goodness gracious, it's looking thin. And I don't really want to go ahead and take an Austin Hooper right now. So we're going to go ahead. We're going to go and grab a running back. Specifically, I'm going to take Kenyon Drake. I think Kenyon Drake, now thank God, Frank Gore is no longer on that team. And Adam Gase isn't there to hold him back. Dude was fantastic, had a limited amount of touches. He didn't even have the most rushes last season on the Dolphins. Frank Gore just completely ate that all up. We know how capable Kenyon Drake is in the passing game. He's going to be fantastic for them. Ryan Fitzpatrick, I know he likes to air the ball out of here and there, but Kenyon Drake is going to be a great part of that offense. So we're going to go ahead. We're going to pick up Kenyon Drake here, shore up another running back to fill out our bench. Will Fuller off the board, no big deal. A guy that I'm really high on, especially with the combination between him and DeAndre Hopkins on that field. Goodness, they're going to be great. Okay, so wide receivers, we're gone. A couple quarterback, a couple running backs, no big deal. At this point, I want to go ahead, look at the tight end field a little bit. Again, nobody's really moved at the tight end position. I expected a couple to come off the board, but then again, how many tight ends have been drafted? 2, 4, 6, 8, 9. Okay, so 3 more tight ends need to go, and potentially if those 3 go and Austin Hooper stays in front of me, I can go ahead and shore that up. So looking at the wide receiver position, Kiki Cutie, who had a couple good performances late in last year, but the main issue that prevents Kiki Cutie from performing is himself. He's injury prone. Majority of last season he spent in the trainer's room, ailing his injuries and trying to figure it out. But, once he came back, when the guy was getting 10-plus targets a game, he was absolutely fantastic. And he was a great part of that offense, especially against the Colts in the playoffs. The guy is really capable of performing, especially with a high volume of targets, which he could see, especially considering DeAndre Hopkins, Will Fuller. They're going to spread out the field, and underneath, Kiki Cutie could just torch teams. But looking at other wide receiver options, I'm looking for wide receiver 1 specifically. D.D. Westbrook, yes, he might be a wide receiver 1 this year with Nick Foles, but I mean, how much faith do we have in that? I don't know how much that offense is going to be able to produce passing wise, but we'll see. let's see here. Kenny Stills could be good with Ryan Fitzpatrick at quarterback now that he's going to be the starting quarterback, at least for right now, for the Dolphins, unless they go ahead and make a move and draft a quarterback. Speaking of quarterbacks, I know I'm on a tangent again. Josh Rosen's probably going to be traded, either to the New York Giants, the New England Patriots. I've heard some rumors about the LA Chargers, potentially the Bengals. He could end up with the Dolphins for all we know, but either way, yeah, speaking of quarterbacks, Josh Rosen's probably on the move, and that means that Kyler Murray's going to be the first overall pick most likely, but we'll go ahead and see. Looking at running, no, okay, so I need a wide receiver. I just got to pull a trigger here. Just looking at the available players, I'm really high on Adam Humphries, but now that he's signed with the Tennessee Titans, I'm not really sure about that, but then again, he's going to be the number 2 wide receiver there. Comparatively to these other guys, he'll probably get a lot of opportunity, but with Marcus Mariota at the helm, man, it's really hard to trust that as a whole, but I'm not too, I don't know. I'm not too sure about this. I'm looking at these other guys. It begins to get a little bit bleak. And then these guys, some of these, like Mohamed Sanu down here at 67, right? He's a guy that last season was a wide receiver too. Yeah, a lot of people don't know that, but he was a wide receiver too. Now, it's probably because other wide receivers were injured and a couple situations here and there, but there's a lot of value down here, but it's just sneaky. So you just got to be able to think about it. As of right now, I'm an Adam Humphries truther. I will always be. I really like Kiki Cutie, so I'll probably go with Cutie as of right now. Considering how high-powered that offense is, we'll just go ahead and fill that out. And then second, I'm probably going to go ahead. I'm going to take the tight end that I want. Delaney Walker could be great, but he's getting really old. Jack Doyle, him and Ebron, I don't know how it's going to work, them splitting snaps. I have some stats on Ebron and Doyle, but I've been on too many tangents to continue. So, and then Trey Burton, no big deal. Fuck it. We're just going to wait. We're going to see if a tight end drops to us. If anything, I'll take Vance McDonald. I'll be happy with it. So let's go get some more running back depth as of right now. Looking at the available players, we're going to probably take Latavius Murray, and I'll explain to you why in about... Ooh, we could go with Kareem Hunt. That's not a bad pick, actually. Just take Kareem Hunt and say gamble on it. What round is it? 9th? Yeah, let's just take Kareem Hunt. We're just gambling on it right now. I was going to say Latavius Murray is not a bad pick, considering that if you look at his stats comparatively to what Mark Ingram's capable of doing, and if you consider the fact that the Minnesota Vikings offensive line in the last couple years has been terrible, he's pretty much a cheaper version of Mark Ingram. And he's going to be used exactly like that. I think he's going to get a lot of the similar opportunity. And behind such a great offensive line like the Saints have, he's going to be a really sneaky good pick. But as of right now, I just said F it. We went with Kareem Hunt, no big deal. All right, let's go. Let's figure out this running back. This tight end situation, shall we? I'm just not going to mess around with it anymore. I'm going to go with Austin Hooper, no big deal. And then we're going to go ahead. And we're going to probably pick up another running back because I definitely need one. Ito Smith, Duke Johnson, Austin Eckler is probably the pick to go to as of right now. Just thinking about what Carlos Hyde's there. That's not bad. Devontae. Oh, God. I don't know how the Dolphins re-signed Devontae Parker, but watch him have a great week 1. I'm calling it right now. I'm not kidding. We can timestamp it. I'll pull it out in week 2. But Devontae Parker is going to somehow catch a 70-yard bomb for Ryan Fitzpatrick in week 1, and we'll all regret and we'll all cry about it. It's no big deal, though. I love how it has John Ross as the most the most suggested pick as it ran out, even though for majority of last season, he didn't do much. He had a couple touchdowns here and there, but that was pretty much all of his work. We're going to go ahead. Oh, man, I like Carlos Hyde, but not that much. We're going to go with Austin. 1, 2. Do I need another running back, Andrew? Thinking about it, I got 4 really capable running backs. So what do I set this up with? I want handcuffs at this point, don't I? Nah, not really. Because Austin Eckler is a pretty good flex play here and there, especially if Melvin Gordon goes down early. That could be a ridiculously good pick, especially now that I'm looking at the wide receivers. I can come back for a guy like Dante Moncrief or Tyrell Williams. So, yeah, we're going to go ahead. We're going to draft Austin Eckler. Sure up some running backs here and there. The running back depth is flowing for this team just to make sure that I'm keeping myself safe. All right, let's see here, shall we? The second quarterback, I'll probably go ahead and take a gamble on like Jimmy Garoppolo or Lamar Jackson in a little bit, but as of right now, don't want to really approach that. Devontae Parker, Deshaun Hamilton, Marquise Lee. Marcus Lee coming back after, I think it was an Achilles injury last year or ACL, either one. Starts with an A, so I knew that much. But either way, looking at these wide receivers, man, none of these guys pop off the screen. I mean, there's a couple. I mean, why is Josh Reynolds even here? He's never going to play next year. He will not see the field. You know, the funny thing is, Willie Snead kind of pops out to me a tad bit, considering the fact that there are literally no wide receivers on the Ravens right now. Michael Crabtree's gone. John Brown's gone. What do they have? They have tight ends, they have running backs, and they have Willie Snead. Just saying, maybe he can figure it out. Randall Cobb's going to the Dallas Cowboys. We'll see what that turns into. That in itself is already scary proposition, but I need another wide receiver here. Looking at our available talent, Traquan Smith, man, he needs to step up. I think there's a good chance he can figure that out. I think Jared Cook Jr., the Oakland Raiders, is going to be signing with the New Orleans Saints, so that in itself is going to probably hurt him because besides Michael Thomas, Alvin Kamara, it'll probably be Jared Cook as the third best wide or receiving option on that team, and then Traquan's going to have to figure out and pick up whatever scraps are left available. But just looking at what's available right now, I'm going with Iguanami St. Brown. If he can end up winning that wide receiver 2 spot over a guy like Geronimo Allison, goodness gracious, he can be an extremely... Oh, no, do I want him or Scantling? I don't know, man. Iguanami St. Brown, I'm not really too high on him. Now that I'm thinking about this, there are a lot of wide receivers on this offense. There's Geronimo, there's Devontae Adams, and then you have to get past Marquez Scantling. Never mind. Maybe St. Brown, maybe not the best pick. I mean, I don't want Devontae Parker. Forget it. We're going with Devontae Parker. Listen, we're rolling with it today, okay? It's really hot in my room. The light that's blasting off my face is making me sweat. I'm starting to, get some hot flashes here and there. Everything's going out of control. What round are we in? We are in the 13th round, actually the 14th round. So the next couple picks is going to be a bench spot and then kicker and a defense, unfortunately. So as of right now, what our last pick is probably going to be, I could take a quarterback. But I'm just going to, for right now, but considering this is not a legit league or whatever the heck, whatever. We'll just take a quarterback. Out of the available ones, just to kind of give you guys an idea on what I would go for, I would probably go with, I like Lamar Jackson, but he's kind of volatile. Mitch Trubisky, I'm surprised, is still available. But then again, I play in too many 2-quarterback leagues to freak out too much here. I'd probably just still go with Jared Goff. I think... I know he scares the crap out of me, but he doesn't scare me as much when he's sitting on my bench. Just saying. Anyway, so now that we've gotten here, we'll go ahead. Yeah, Dallas defense, pretty good last season. Greg Zuerlein, best kicker in the league. Legatron himself. All right, so anyway, just kind of let's give ourselves a breakdown here. So what we're looking at, thank you. Matt Ryan at quarterback, Le'Veon Bell, Joe Mixon as our 2 starting running backs. Stephon Diggs, Robert Woods, Jarvis Landry. It's a pretty good slate of wide receivers there. As of right now, that's probably 1 wide receiver 1 as Robert Woods, and then Stephon Diggs could potentially step up. Jarvis Landry, who had, I think, about 56% catch rate last season, the lowest of his entire career. The entirety of his time with the Dolphins, dude had a 70+% catch rate. He'll go ahead and improve upon that as Odell Beckham comes in, as he gets more acclimated with Baker Mayfield and the rapport starts to build a little bit more. So I'm sure he's going to improve. Tight end is Austin Hooper, going to match him up with Matt Ryan comparatively to the other guys that were available. I obviously didn't go to the tight end position too early in this draft because I thought the tight end position is already bleak. And if I'm going to overspend for one of them, sure, you can go ahead and do that. Obviously your team will lack in other areas, and I'm sure I could have went for that, but I went to the tight end party a little bit late. I adjusted. I went with Austin Hooper, was the number 7 tight end last season in half-point PPR scoring formats. And I think if his offensive, opportunity is increased just a little bit this next year, gets 100 targets. I mean, he was close to it, 88 last season. He could be that much more valuable. What am I just... at the flex position, I don't know what just happened. My mouth just spazzed out. At the flex position, we closed it out with the Tariq Cohen and like a Kenyon Drake off the bench, 2 receiving running backs, guys that are going to be change of pace backs, but especially both of them can be the number 1 running backs of their teams. So I can just have 2 guys that I can interchange depending on matchups. A I preferably would keep Tariq Cohen, especially considering the fact that he led the team last season in a majority of the receiving stats. The guy was just a monster out of the backfield. Whether Trubisky or Chase Daniels are as that quarterback, it didn't really matter. Continues to be a ridiculous option there within that offense. Kind of looking at our bench, could have went better. Obviously, I was taking a lot of time talking about a bunch of other players that I didn't draft, but as I mentioned, Kenyon Drake's going to be the number one option there finally, given all that opportunity. Kiki Cutie is a decent. He's going to be a wide receiver 3 for that team. But honestly, if he can continue to see, the amount of targets he did later on in the back end of that season, it could be a pretty good offensive option for that team. Kareem Hunt, that's a gamble pick. But to be honest, if Kareem Hunt can start figuring it out once he comes back, that's a gamble I'm willing to take, especially at the end of the 9th round. Going into the 10th, I wasn't really too upset about that. Austin Eckler pretty much stealing a viable player that has flex opportunity, that is also a guy that can be, if Melvin Gordon continues to get hurt like he does every season, could be a pretty vital pick going on to into this season. We went Devontae Parker. I don't know. Probably would have never went Devontae Parker if this wasn't a mock draft, but reason being that, honestly, he is the number one wide receiver in that offense. Now that Danny Amendola is gone, Kenny Stills is there, sure, but you have Albert Wilson's coming off of an ACL. I think, was it Jakeem Grant? It's coming off an Achilles. There are a lot of injured receivers within this team. Kenny Stills had a little bit of injury history last year, so Devontae Parker might end up being the number one there. And then Jared Goff is my last pick off this bench. Pretty much thoughts on the matter. No big deal. This is still early in the draft process. Let's go ahead and switch back really quickly. I think not a bad team. Obviously, could have went with different pieces here and there. Let me know if you guys would have made any other different decisions. Go try it yourself. Go to fantasypros.com. Go to the 12th pick. And see what kind of team you end up with. Let me know. I'm really curious to see which kind of picks you guys would make. I went 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers with my first 4 picks. Maybe sprinkling in a tight end wouldn't be bad here and there. But to be honest, now that tight ends are being taken in the 2nd round, it's a little too expensive for my taste, personally. I've never been a guy that's just pro tight end at that extent, or at that, at that fantasy stock. But anyway, I want to thank everybody for watching. Yes, this is a long video. I've been talking forever, but hey, that's what happens when you put me in front of a microphone and we talk fantasy football. So thank you everybody for watching. Much appreciated on the support. If you have any comments, concerns, hit me up in the comment section. We'll talk about it. But anyway, until next time, thank you everybody for watching, and I'll see you guys later. Peace.